Friday, September 22nd, later. Joey called me after dinner and announced, I'm coming to your school on Monday. Whoa, what happened? I took your advice. I went into the office with Dad. You were right. Mrs. Gates came out all smiles. She shook Dad's hand. She said, Tell me what I can do for you. And what did you say? I didn't say anything. My lawyer did all the talking. Basically, she did whatever we said. You said jump, and she said, How high? Exactly. She went in herself and got my folder out of the files. Dad asked her to put a note in there saying I should have all the same classes as you. She did that? She said she was more than happy to. Then we went to find Coach Walski to give him the uniform back. How was he? Not cool. He started telling me that I shouldn't leave, that I won't be allowed to play at Tangerine Middle because I live in the Lake Windsor district. But Dad was ready for him. He cut him right off and said, We'll see about that. Wait here. He said that? So he hustled back over to the office, right? Dad had Gates write out a letter giving me special permission to play soccer at Tangerine Middle School. All right. Then we took it back to Walski. My dad stuck it under his nose and made him sign it. Awesome. What did he say? Not a word. Not one word. Joey paused. Then he continued awkwardly. So, think you'll be able to show me around on Monday? My mouth opened up to answer him, but I couldn't. Couldn't see myself leading Joey around the halls of Tangerine Middle School. That had to be somebody else's job. I said, I'll tell you what you should do. When you get to the office, ask to see Dr. Johnson, right? Then ask her to let Teresa Cruz take you around. Joey repeated the name like he was writing it down. Teresa Cruz. Why? She cute or something? I hesitated. Yeah, I guess she's kind of cute, but that's not it. She's connected. At Tangerine, it's all about being connected. Joey said, Uh-huh. But I don't think he understood. Then he said, What about the soccer team? What are those guys like? That was a good question. I didn't have the answer to it. Not yet. I finally said, They're super focused on the game, on winning. It's life or death for them. Joey once again repeated my words. Life or death. Okay, I can handle that. I'll see you on Monday. Saturday, September 23rd. Today was the first day of football season for the Lake Windsor High Seagulls. They played a home game against the Cypress Bay High Cardinals. Dad was pretty hyper, like this was the most important day of his life or something. We got there at 1 o'clock for a 2 o'clock game, but I was glad we did. We barely managed to crowd into the home side bleachers. We sat with the other Lake Windsor fans and with the few Cypress Bay fans who remembered that half our bleachers had been condemned. I hadn't seen the bleachers since the day of the sinkhole. There they sat, a big gray erector set, now looped with yellow police ribbons that said "Do not cross," like a big VIP section reserved for people who were never going to show up. By 1:30, the rest of the Cypress Bay fans had gotten the message. There was nowhere for them to sit. They were milling around both end zones trying to find open places to stand and watch the game. Mom kept saying, "This isn't right. Didn't anybody plan for this?" Finally, a group of teenagers wearing red and white Cardinal shirts decided to do something about it. They walked around to the visitor side, ducked under the yellow ribbon, sat down in the front row. They then gestured back to the other Cypress Bay fans like they were pantomiming. See? We made it. It didn't collapse. Other fans started heading over there. Then suddenly we saw this fat guy in a gray suit go running across the field. Called out, Look, that's Mr. Bridges. Sure enough, Mr. Bridges was yelling and waving at the Cypress Bay fans to go back, to get out of there. But they weren't listening. In fact, more and more red and white shirts seemed willing to take a chance on the condemned bleachers. A photographer in a Tangerine Times cap started bobbing in front of Mr. Bridges, taking pictures of him trying to turn the mob back. He finally gave up yelling, came stomping back across the grass, red-faced, like he was about to have a heart attack. It was past the time to start the game, but nothing was happening on the field. Mom spotted Eric in his uniform, light blue helmet, white pants, and light blue jersey with seagulls written across the front. He had a white number 1 on his back. Arthur Bauer was standing next to him, of course. He was wearing number 4. We continued to sit, baking in the sun for nearly 30 minutes while nothing happened. Finally, a squadron of police cruisers appeared on Seagull Way. They had their sirens sounding and their lights flashing. Right behind them came a square white truck with a big satellite dish on the top and Channel 2 News on the side. They all pulled in behind the home bleachers. While the other cops spread out, Two big sheriff's deputies marched across the field and confronted the Cypress Bay fans. It was all over in a minute. The fans weren't there to fight. They surrendered immediately, ducking back under the ribbons and finding places to stand along the far sideline. At last, the referees and players took the field to start the game. Turned out to be a pretty sloppy game, considering that the Tangerine Times had picked both the Lake Windsor Seagulls and the Cypress Bay Cardinals as teams to watch in its preseason poll. Eric kicked off for our side, driving the ball deep into the Cypress Bay end zone. But then he stood on the sideline for the side. But then he stood on the sideline for the rest of the half. Neither offense could get anything going. Each side would run 3 plays and then punt the ball away. Eric was the place kicker, but Anthony Thomas, in addition to everything else, did the punting. By the end of the first half, Anthony had run for about 50 yards, but nearly all of his passes had been dropped. The Seagulls had never gotten the ball close enough for Eric to try a field goal. The Cypress Bay offense was no better. They had a big fullback. They had a big fullback who could pick up 3 yards through the middle, but that was about it. It was 0-0 at the half. Tina, Paige, and the rest of the Lake Windsor cheerleaders, the Sea Girls, took the field for a halftime dance routine. The third quarter was as dull as the first two, but Cypress Bay's offense suddenly got it together in the final period. They drove 85 yards for a touchdown, most of those yards coming from that big fullback. The kick for the extra point was good, and Cypress Bay led 7-0. Anthony responded with 2 short runs and then a beautiful 40-yard pass to Terry Donnelly, who was wide open down the left sideline. I could have caught that pass. My grandmother could have caught it for that matter. But Terry Donnelly dropped it. Anthony had to punt again. That's when I noticed the black clouds rolling in. That whole mess with the visitors' bleachers and Mr. Bridges and the cops had pushed the game past the 4 o'clock barrier. In a matter of minutes, we went from sunny skies to kaboom. Then down it came, a cold, hard rain. Most of the fans climbed down from the bleachers and ran for the cars. Mom yelled, "Come on, you two!" But Dad said, "No, you go ahead. I'm staying." So I said, "I'm staying too." Mom was already on the ground. She yelled back, "Fine, stay. I hope neither of you gets killed." She ran back to the Volvo, leaving us to get soaked. Or worse. The rain turned out to be a blessing for Lake Windsor. The offensive line started pushing Cypress Bay back, letting Anthony move the ball steadily down the field. 5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards. With 2 minutes to play, the Seagulls were all the way down to the Cypress Bay 5 yard line. Anthony faked a run to the right and lofted a pass into the left corner of the end zone that some mud-covered Seagull receiver caught for the touchdown. A soggy cheer went up from the few fans left in the bleachers. The score was 7-6, and Eric's big moment had arrived. He came running onto the field in his perfectly clean, mud-free uniform to kick the extra point that would tie the game. Eric had never missed an extra point. Never. I was expecting to see Arthur Bauer trotting out with him, but number 4 was still standing there on the sideline with the other clean uniforms. The two mighty teams lined up. Eric got into his kicking stance, and Anthony Thomas crouched down in front of him to hold the ball. I said, "Check it out, Dad." "Anthony's the holder." "I see," he said grimly. "Eric told me that Arthur would be his holder. I don't think it's such a good idea to throw a surprise like this at your kicker." Dad and Eric and I and everybody else figured that Arthur had taken over Mike Costello's job. But no, there was Anthony, in the crouch, getting ready to spin the laces and set the ball down for Eric. The referee blew his whistle. The clock started to tick, and Lake Windsor's big center snapped the ball. Eric, his head down, in total concentration, took 2 steps forward, like he's rehearsed a million times. His foot started toward the ball in a powerful arc, and then the most incredible thing happened. Anthony whipped the ball away at the last second, like Lucy does with Charlie Brown. He took off running around the right side and crossed the goal line untouched for a 2 point conversion. Seagulls led 8-7. At the same moment, Eric, who clearly did not expect Anthony to pull the ball away, kicked at nothing but the air. His left foot went flying off in one direction, his right foot in another. For a split second, he was a parallel line 3 feet above the ground. Then he made a perfect banana peel backflop, landing in the mud. The people around us started laughing, hooting, and cheering, all at the same time. Anthony spiked the ball in the end zone, and all the Lake Windsor players except Eric ran over and jumped on him. All the Lake Windsor players on the sideline except Arthur started jumping up and down too. Eric finally got up, walked to the sideline to get his kicking tee. His front was still clean and white, but his back was now filthy. He kicked the ball back to the Cardinals, but they fumbled it away. That's how it ended. Lake Windsor 8, Cypress Bay 7. When we got back to the car, Mom just said, "From here, it sounded like we won." I wanted to tell her all about Eric's banana peel back flop special, but Dad cut in right away. "Yeah, we won on a fake kick. They sent Eric out to fake the kick for the extra point. That drew the offense to him, and it cleared the way for Anthony to run it for 2 points." Mom thought for a minute. "So Eric did something that helped to win the game?" "Most definitely," Dad said. "It's not something that shows up in the stats in the newspaper. Not something people remember, but it helped win the game." I thought to myself, not remember? You gotta be kidding. Eric's flying banana peel backflop in the mud is the one thing about this game that everybody is going to remember. Dad continued talking in this manner throughout dinner, pounding home his theme to Eric, that Eric had contributed big time to the victory, that Eric had actually made a victory possible by being the decoy. I don't think Eric was even listening. He was just sitting there looking down, twisting his varsity ring around and around on his finger. After dinner, Dad flipped on the TV so we all could watch the local news. The lead story on Channel 2 was the revolt of the Cypress Bay fans and their brief takeover of the condemned visitors' bleach. About two-thirds of the way through the broadcast came the Saturday Sports Roundup. The sports anchorman went through the professional baseball and football stuff, then the college football scores, then the high school scores. Lake Windsor 8, Cypress Bay 7. The broadcast ended with a feature called The Week in Sports. It was a collection of sports bloopers, and guess who they saved for last? The anchorman said something like, "Finally, a play that looks like it was drawn up by the Three Stooges. Watch closely." And there it was, a ground level view of the ball being snapped to Anthony, of Eric striding forward confidently, and whoop, up in there he flew. It was even more comical than I had remembered. Eric went splashing down into the mud. But he didn't stay there. They rewound the tape so that he popped back up, flopped again, popped back up, and flopped again. Finally, the camera turned toward the end zone to catch Anthony spiking the ball. It zoomed in on his face. Anthony was laughing and pointing his finger at that big center, who was pointing back at him. When the anchorman came back on, he was cracking up. So were all the other news people. The credits started rolling. They started saying stuff like, "Does that school have a diving team?" And "I hear those mud baths are good for wrinkles." Dad got up and snapped off the TV. The four of us sat there in stony silence. I was thinking that if I were at somebody else's house, we'd be rolling on the floor and laughing at this. I was thinking that kids all over Florida were rolling on the floor and laughing at this. At Eric Fisher, the flying place kicker. But this isn't somebody else's house. This is the house built on the Eric Fisher football dream. Finally, Dad said to Eric, "Hey, all you can do is laugh it off." Mom agreed. "That's right. You just leave it behind you. That's all you can do. You leave it behind you, and it's over with." The four of us got up and went our separate ways, me up to my room. I stared out my window at the back wall. "Forget it, Dad. Forget it, Mom. Eric can't laugh this off. Eric can't leave this humiliation behind him. Someone has to pay for this. I'm not sure why I'm sure, but I am. Someone has to pay for this."